Greetings. Today we delve into a secret that changed the course of World War II, an unbreakable code rooted in a language so complex that even the most advanced cryptologists failed to crack it. Imagine intercepting vital military messages from the Pacific, only to realize they are encrypted in a language so intricate that it defies all systematic decoding efforts. What if the key to victory lay not in machine algorithms, but in a language spoken by just over 170,000 people, one with 4 tones and millions of possible verb forms? Now consider this. Japanese cryptanalysts had spent years breaking the most formidable enemy codes, purple, British naval signals, diplomatic ciphers, yet they hit a wall with one particular set of marine communications. Could it really be true that these signals were unbreakable, resisting every effort, because they were not a simple cipher, but a feat of linguistic mastery? How could a message, timed precisely before military operations, remain utterly opaque despite sophisticated technology? And what if the answer to this puzzle was hidden within a language spoken by a small Native American tribe, whose complex phonology and grammatical richness made it an ideal tool for secrecy? All these pieces come together to reveal a single question. Was the most powerful military code of the Second World War actually a language? And if so, how did it stay forever beyond the reach of even Japan's most elite cryptanalysts? In this video, we will follow the path of a revolutionary idea, how Navajo became the backbone of America's secret communication network, and why its unparalleled complexity made it the ultimate cipher. We will uncover the story behind the legendary Navajo Code Talkers, the brilliant minds who transformed a centuries-old language into an unbreakable military shield, an enigma that would influence warfare and intelligence for generations to come. The most astonishing part, the true secret was not just in the language itself, but in how it was used to secure victory. Now prepare to explore how a rare, living language became the greatest cryptographic weapon of the 20th century, an unbreakable code that history almost forgot. The story begins right now. On the 25th day of March, in the year of our Lord 1944, deep within the secretive confines of the Japanese Naval Intelligence Headquarters situated at Ada Communications Facility in Japan, Commander Atsuzo Kurihara found himself contemplating a critical intercepted message. The morning's subdued daylight cast faint shadows across his desk, where his attention was fixated on the mysterious transmission that had been received just hours earlier. His third cup of bitter, steaming tea had long since cooled, untouched, as his eyes remained locked onto the cryptic data in front of him. For almost a full day and night, more than 18 hours in absolute concentration, Kurihara, along with his elite team of Japan's most skilled cryptanalysts, had dedicated their efforts to unraveling the hidden meaning encoded within what appeared to be tactical communications emanating from American Marine Corps operations in the remote Marshall Islands. Despite their extensive expertise, the complex sounds filtering through their sophisticated listening devices defied every analytical method known to their profession. The transmissions were neither random nor meaningless. Rather, they exhibited a pattern structure that strongly indicated a form of deliberate military communication. The timing of the signals precisely preceded American military actions, and their durations aligned with operational orders. Moreover, the frequency bands used matched established Marine Corps communication protocols. These were clear signs of organized intent and coordination. Yet, strangely enough, the language itself proved wholly unbreakable, an enigma that harbored secrets well beyond the reach of their expansive files and known decoding techniques. Kurihara was in charge of one of the most advanced signals intelligence operations ever assembled. The Ada facility, located roughly 20 miles from Tokyo, was an impressive hub of espionage activity, staffed by some 500 personnel working tirelessly to monitor and interpret the ebb and flow of global military communications. Their arsenal included over 118 radio receivers, each tasked with capturing signals from various sources, along with 20 direction-finding devices designed to locate enemy transmissions precisely. Over the years, they had achieved remarkable success, breaking into American diplomatic traffic as well as British naval communications and numerous Army codes. Even before the attack on Pearl Harbor, they had successfully deciphered the so-called Purple Code of the United States Department of State, granting Japan vital intelligence that informed their strategic decisions during the earliest phases of the Pacific War. However, these latest marine transmissions represented an unprecedented cryptographic barrier. Despite their extensive achievements, 3 years into an ongoing global conflict filled with complex coded messages, Japan's best and brightest cryptologists had wrought no progress on these particular signals. The patternless chaos in the transmissions presented even the world's most sophisticated code breakers with their gravest challenge, an example of how mighty a cipher could be when it resisted systematic decryption. Years of experience and advanced algorithms had proven only frustration. The famed Japanese cryptanalysts had managed to decode countless allied messages, but these marine signals remained obstinately opaque. Even the most basic patterns eluded their grasp. The messages continued to confound them, thwarting their every effort to find a foothold or common key. What Kurihara and his team did not realize, and what no Japanese intelligence officer could have comprehended at that moment until long after the war, was that they were listening to the only unbroken and unbreakable code in all of modern military history. No other encrypted military communication had persisted in such impeccable secrecy and resilience through the chaos of wartime cryptography. Their efforts, in the end, were destined to be futile because the messages they observed were not merely a code. Rather, they represented a cryptographic feat of unparalleled complexity. This story, full of strategic importance and historical intrigue, did not originate in the vast expanses of the Pacific Ocean or its island battlegrounds, but far closer to the American mainland, within the arid and rugged landscapes of the southwestern United States. For centuries, this region had been home to the Navajo people, who had safeguarded an extraordinarily unique language, one unlike any other in the world. The Navajo, or Diné, language belonged to the Abascan language family and numbered approximately 170,000 fluent speakers in 1940. Nearly all of these speakers lived within the expansive Navajo Nation Reservation, a vast territory covering about 27,000 square miles across parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. The Navajo language, with its complex phonology and intricate grammatical structure, was chameleon-like in its ability to confound anyone unfamiliar with its nuances. Over thousands of years, it had evolved distinctive characteristics. At its core, Navajo was fundamentally a verb-centered language in which actions and events were primarily expressed through elaborate prefixes and affixes that could multiply into millions of possible combinations, conveying subtle shades of meaning. The language also used 4 distinct tones: high, low, rising, and falling, each capable of dramatically altering the meaning of a word with even the slightest change in pitch. To a non-native speaker, a slight mispronunciation could distort the entire message, rendering entire Johnston recognize the strategic significance of this linguistic stronghold's potential military application. Born in the year of 1892 to a Protestant missionary stationed on the Navajo reservation, Johnston was immersed from childhood in the Navajo language and culture. He grew up speaking Navajo with fluency so remarkable that, in fact, he was among a very exclusive group. Fewer than 30 non-Navajo speakers worldwide could claim such proficiency. His early mastery of the language was evident. By the time he reached the age of 9, he was already translating his father's sermons, which demanded a deep understanding of both religious concepts and Navajo intricacies. As a teenager of merely 15, Johnston's skills took him to Washington, D.C., where he served as an interpreter for Navajo leaders, a role that even brought him into a meeting with President Theodore Roosevelt himself, an experience of considerable prestige and significance. Fast forward to December of 1941, when the United States was devastated and reeling from the shock of the attack on Pearl Harbor, Johnston immersed himself in the battlefield's emerging needs and possibilities. He came across reports describing how Army units in Louisiana utilized speakers of the Comanche language during training exercises. Historically, the Choctaw tribe had participated in World War I, but their efforts had been somewhat ad hoc, limited in scope and lacking a formalized system. Johnston was struck by the potential to elevate this concept to a new level. He envisioned a revolutionary, structured military communication code based on Navajo, one that was unbreakable by enemies and practical for the demands of modern warfare. On the 28th day of February in the year 1942, Johnston stepped forward and presented his innovative proposal to Major General Clayton Vogel at Camp Elliott, located near San Diego. The presentation revealed an extraordinary breakthrough. As part of the demonstration, 4 Navajo speakers from Los Angeles were tasked with transmitting messages under controlled conditions, while Marine officers timed their performance against standard cipher procedures. The outcome was startling. These Navajo speakers managed to convey messages in just 20 seconds, whereas the conventional M209 cipher machine required 30 minutes to decode the same information. Such a stark contrast drew immediate approval. General Vogel authorized a pilot program to test this promising approach. By the 4th of May in 1942, efforts culminated in the swearing in of 29 Navajo recruits at Fort Wingate, situated in New Mexico. Among this group were notable individuals such as Chester Nez, Carl Gorman, Lloyd Oliver, and John Bennerly, men who had journeyed from across the reservation to participate in what would become a seminal chapter of military history. Their backgrounds varied greatly. Some had attended boarding schools where speaking Navajo was forbidden and severely punished, while others were humble sheep herders whose lives were mostly confined to their ancestral lands, seldom venturing beyond them. At Camp Elliott, these recruits spent over 2 months working within a guarded, secured facility. During this period, they developed a complex military code rooted in their native language. The task was enormous. They had to create terminology for concepts that had no existing Navajo equivalent, devise an alphabetic system, and ensure their code was both memorable and scalable for future needs. Constructing this code involved a clever mimicry of cultural and logical principles. For example, the word for submarine was envisioned as bestow, a metaphor involving an ironfish swimming beneath the surface. A battleship, a formidable vessel, was represented by the term lot whale, alluding to the ocean's largest creature. Fighter planes, swift and agile, took the poetic name of da hummingbirds darting through air, evoking their speed and agility. Bombers, known for their massive size and destructive power, became jasho, likened to buzzards circling before striking. Developing the Navajo alphabet was equally demanding, as each letter needed multiple Navajo words associated with it to obfuscate frequency analysis and confuse potential eavesdroppers. The letter E, which is the most common vowel in English, was assigned 4 different Navajo equivalents, such as most, tear, hair, or ear, so that attackers could not identify patterns by frequency alone. The code talkers would then randomly alternate between these options during transmissions, ensuring that no consistent repetitions could be used to decode their messages. Over time, they constructed an initial set of 211 terms, all meticulously memorized, leaving no room for reliance on written codebooks which could be captured and exploited by the enemy. Chester Nez, one of the code talkers, later reflected on their rigorous training. "We drilled endlessly. A mistake on our part could mean lives lost," he explained. He emphasized that in Navajo culture, words possess a profound sense of power and sanctity, making the correctness of speech a matter of life and death. Their dedication was driven not only by the technical challenge, but also by a cultural reverence. Speaking accurately was a sacred act beyond mere communication. The code's first combat test arrived at Guadalcanal. The difficulty in understanding these transmissions was profound and formidable. Lieutenant Kazuo Yamada, a native of Japan who had been educated at Stanford University before the outbreak of war, meticulously described the nature of the encrypted sounds he and his cryptanalysts had encountered. He explained that the sounds appeared to be deliberately organized and structured in a manner reminiscent of language, complete with consistent patterns that suggested an underlying system. Yet perplexingly, the audios bore no resemblance to any known language, neither English nor French, Dutch nor Spanish, any dialect from the Philippines, nor any form of Chinese. It was, as he put it, entirely alien, entirely unfamiliar. In response, the Japanese military took systematic and indeed exhaustive measures. They assigned their most talented and dedicated code-breaking experts, specialists in cryptography from various fields, and recorded hundreds of hours of these mysterious transmissions on wax cylinders. a technology still vital at the time. Every analytical method available within their knowledge was applied. Linguistic comparisons, pattern recognition, frequency analysis, and more obscure techniques. They even sought consultation with university linguists, scholars experienced in deciphering ancient languages, and Buddhist monks skilled in historical scriptures, hoping that some insight into a language long dead or obscure might unlock the message. Yet all efforts proved futile. None of these approaches could reveal the meaning hidden within the sounds. A notable breakthrough, or perhaps a demonstration of how stubbornly the enemy's code resisted, occurred on the 8th of November in the year 1942. On this day, a code talker named Chester Nez transmitted artillery coordinate data that successfully pinpointed and destroyed a Japanese machine gun nest. The entire message was just 14 seconds long, intercepted by American signals intelligence, yet the Japanese operators interpreted it simply as meaningless noise. To the Japanese military, these transmissions appeared like mere static or random sounds, offering no clues at all. Despite the lack of immediate understanding, the precise strikes carried out by American artillery proved the transmission's effectiveness. Just minutes after Nez's message, American shells exploded broadsides on the target with devastating accuracy. Colonel Haruo Konuma, an intelligence officer of the Japanese Army's 17th Division, vividly documented their growing frustration in a report. He acknowledged that the Americans had developed a code that managed to thwart every enemy effort at decryption, rendering them unable to anticipate incoming attacks, thus fighting almost blindly in the dark. This impasse was regarded as a critical and bothersome development for Japanese military intelligence. Amid this turmoil, they turned their attention to a Navajo soldier named Joe Kalumia, who had been captured at the Battle of Bataan in April of 1942. His possession of only limited knowledge of Navajo and no familiarity with the specialized military code that the Americans had toiled to develop made him seem like a hopeless case initially. Yet the Japanese cryptographers believed he might hold a key if he could be persuaded or perhaps forced to reveal the code. When the Japanese intercepted Navajo communications, they brought Kalumia to an interrogation center called Auna, where they played recordings containing Navajo words transmitted in code talk. To their dismay, Kalumia recognized the words as genuine Navajo, but found the sequences nonsensical. Words about a turtle attacking an iron fish or hummingbirds carrying eggs did not translate into anything militarily meaningful or consistent. When he failed to decipher, the Japanese interrogators accused him of deceit, of hiding knowledge. Their techniques for extracting information grew increasingly brutal, and over the course of many months, they adopted systematic coercion encompassing all forms of torture, waterboarding, beatings, and prolonged suspension by the arms. In the winter of 1943, they subjected Kalumia to a particularly cruel punishment, forcing him to stand shirtless in the snow until his feet froze solidly to the icy ground. They also starved him repeatedly, offering meager food supplies, about less than 900 calories daily, in an attempt to pressure him to give up any translations he might know. Yet through every fruitless interrogation and every savage ordeal, Kalumia persisted in one unwavering truth. He understood the Navajo words genuinely, but he lacked the knowledge of their military encoding to interpret their significance. A Japanese intelligence report written in May 1943 provides stark testimony to the prisoners' tenacity, or perhaps their extraordinary resistance. The report recorded the Japanese conviction that Kalumia, despite understanding the Navajo language, was unable to comprehend the coded messages they intercepted. So either he was remarkably resistant, or the enemy system employed a specialized form of coding within their native language, requiring specific training to decode correctly. The military authorities correctly surmised that even native Navajo speakers trained solely in conversational language could not make sense of the military code without prior instruction. The fact that Kalumia endured 3.5 years of captivity without revealing the secret code stubbornly convinced Japanese intelligence that they faced a highly unconventional and formidable challenge. By late 1943, given their inability to break the coded Nava, during the intense and grueling training sessions, new recruits were immersed in a variety of challenging exercises aimed at preparing them for the brutal realities of warfare. These training sessions famously took place within specially designed, soundproof booths, which allowed instructors to simulate battlefield noises with remarkable fidelity. Such immersion was crucial for teaching soldiers how to maintain composure and communicate effectively amidst the chaos of combat. To further challenge their resilience, the trainees were required to transmit messages while wearing gas masks, all the while running through exhausting physical drills designed to test their endurance and mental focus under stress. One notable recruit, Thomas Bay, who had enlisted at the remarkably young age of 15, vividly described the intensity of this training environment. He recalled how they were pushed far beyond what any of them believed to be their limits, emphasizing that their lives, indeed the success of their missions, depended entirely on the precision and accuracy of their coded communications. As the war effort continued and new technological advancements emerged, so too did the systems of communication evolve, necessitating the continual development of new vocabulary and code methods. For instance, the atomic bomb, which had become a critical element of warfare, was given a new code name, Ayashi, meaning metal egg, reflecting the inventive nature of the cipher. Similarly, kamikaze pilots, who were tasked with high-stakes operations, used code words like neti, translating to death wind, encapsulating the lethal and swift nature of their missions. These specialized coding terms made perfect sense to Navajo speakers, whose language formed the backbone of one of the most secure ciphers used during the conflict. To outsiders, however, these codes sounded alien, intricate, and largely indecipherable. By mid-year of the year 1943, Japanese intelligence had allocated substantial resources to breaking this linguistic barrier. The Imperial Navy's 4th Section assigned no fewer than 30 Krypton analysts exclusively to decipher the transmissions encoded in Navajo and other indigenous languages, highlighting the strategic importance of these communications and the lengths to which the Japanese forces went in their efforts to uncover their secrets. Captain Yoshiro Tanaka spearheaded attempts to crack the code through unconventional means. His team explored a broad array of innovative approaches, including analyzing musical patterns for tonal similarities, comparing the Code Talkers' recordings to Native American music, and consulting scholars who had studied indigenous languages and cultures in America. They even developed specialized recording equipment designed to slow down the transmission of coded messages without distorting their pitch, which proved essential for detailed analysis. The use of oscilloscopes allowed these scientists to produce visual sound representations, essentially mapping out the signals in graphical forms that made patterns more discernible. Advanced statistical techniques were also employed to analyze sound frequencies and identify recurring patterns or anomalies that might reveal the structure of the code. Lieutenant Commander Masao Yamada, one of the key figures in this analytical effort, later disclosed that although they could detect certain patterns, such as probable call signs and correlations between message length and operational complexity, they lacked sufficient understanding of the actual word content. Without knowing the specific vocabulary and context, these insights provided only limited benefits in field operations. Simultaneously, Japanese forces received orders to capture American Marine communications personnel alive, offering substantial rewards, up to 10,000 yen, equivalent to a decade's worth of a typical salary at the time, in exchange for kagametan or materials related to code talkers. Despite several close encounters, no code talker was ever captured along with their equipment intact, underscoring the difficulty and danger involved in these espionage efforts. The strategic value of the Navajo Code Talkers became particularly evident during the Central Pacific Campaign. At the Battle of Tarawa in November of 1943, 6 Navajo Code Talkers managed to sustain crucial communication channels for a staggering 76 hours of intense combat. One of them, Lloyd Oliver, especially distinguished himself by transmitting continuously for nearly 50 hours straight amidst relentless artillery and machine gun fire, effectively coordinating naval gunfire support that played a vital role in their victory. Similarly, during the Mariana Islands campaign, 24 Navajo Code Talkers operated tirelessly around the clock in Saipan and other key locations, demonstrating endless dedication under extraordinary conditions. Lieutenant Commander Takashi Hirakawa, who had initially decoded conventional Japanese communications to anticipate the attack, found that once the Marines landed, the tactical intelligence they relied upon suddenly vanished. Colonel Takashi Saito later reflected bitterly that the commanding officers felt betrayed and left vulnerable without the anticipated insights from their intercepted communications. Another iconic story from this period involves code talker Jimmy King at Palalua, who after his partner was killed in action, continued to transmit for 6 hours during a fierce counterattack. Under direct enemy fire, he coordinated artillery fire between 3 different battalions, sending an impressive 40 messages without a single error. Impressive proof of the resilience and skill of the code talkers. Their most significant contribution undoubtedly came during the Battle for Uoima, where Major Howard Connor coordinated the entire initial assault solely through Navajo code. For the critical, during the tumultuous years of World War II, a group of extraordinary individuals played a pivotal role that has since become legendary in military history. These men, known as the Navajo Code Talkers, were tasked with transmitting crucial messages during combat operations, and they accomplished this feat with remarkable precision and resilience. Over the course of the conflict, these skilled communicators sent and received more than 800 messages, all flawlessly without making a single error. An astonishing achievement considering the chaos and danger that characterized battlefield conditions. Their messages coordinated the landing of 30,000 Marines, directed naval gunfire from 100 ships, facilitated close air support, identified enemy positions, orchestrated medical evacuations, managed supplies, and conveyed tactical orders. Everything happening under the relentless threat of enemy fire. Their role was fundamental to the success of operations, often making the difference between victory and defeat in critical moments. One of the most notable voices among these brave communicators was Major Connor, who later testified that, without the Navajo Code Talkers, capturing Uoima might have been beyond reach. His statement underscored their indispensable contribution, highlighting how their unique skills in encoding and decoding messages under extreme pressure kept the Allied forces a step ahead. During the first 48 hours of a major campaign, I personally observed 6 Navajo radio nets operating continuously, their operators tirelessly transmitting and receiving over 800 messages with perfect accuracy, an extraordinary feat that seemed almost superhuman. The entire operation relied on the Navajo language, a complex, tonal, and highly specific code that proved unbreakable throughout the war. The ingenuity of the Navajo code was so profound that Colonel Shigo Hayashi, a Japanese officer, reported to the commanding General Kuribayashi that the American codes, especially the Navajo cipher, remained entirely unbreakable. In fact, requests for artillery support made through Navajo channels could be fulfilled within 20 seconds, a process that would have otherwise taken up to 30 minutes if conventional methods were used. This rapid communication enabled them to destroy enemy positions swiftly, preventing their retaliation and preserving the lives of countless soldiers. During the climactic Battle of Okinawa, the Navajo Code Talkers coordinated the largest Pacific assault involving nearly 200,000 troops over the span of 82 days. Despite Japanese efforts to jam radio frequencies and mimic voices in an attempt to disrupt the communication, the Navajo tonal qualities proved impossible for their enemies to imitate convincingly. Japanese intelligence officers, such as Lieutenant Hiroshi Miyamoto, made vigorous attempts to mimic the Navajo speech, but according to code talker Alfred Newman, their efforts sounded more like someone goggling or making guttural sounds while trying to speak. A clear indication of how distinct and unforgeable the Navajo language was to the stationing enemy. On a day of symbolic importance, August 14, 1945, just days before Japan's surrender, code talker Teddy Draper transmitted one of the war's most significant messages, Nahema Edigini Adanil, meaning Japanese surrender. This message traveled through the Navajo radio nets directly to high command, bypassing conventional channels, serving as a fitting and poetic culmination of the code talkers' wartime service. After the war ended, American intelligence interrogators uncovered the full extent of Japanese efforts to crack Allied communications and their complete failure in deciphering the Navajo code. Lieutenant General Chiso Arisu, Japan's chief of military intelligence, publicly admitted that they never managed to break the Marine tactical code. Although they successfully decrypted Army and Air Force codes as well as diplomatic messages, the secure Marine code defied all their efforts. Captain Yasuji Kawamoto, a Japanese cryptanalyst, noted that thousands of intercepted transmissions had been systematically studied by Japan's best linguists over a period of 3 years, yet nothing yielded any useful insights, highlighting their utter cryptanalytical failure. In 1944, analysts noted tonal patterns in the intercepted communications that suggested the use of Native American languages, but attempts to enlist German assistance for further decryption were thwarted by wartime difficulties and German ignorance about the indigenous languages, rendering breakthrough impossible. Yamada Masao, a Japanese colonel, candidly observed, "The inability to read marine communications cost thousands of our lives." He explained that because the Japanese could not understand their enemy's messages, every marine operation after 1942 remained shrouded in mystery until the moment it commenced, often with deadly consequences. For survivors like Major Hiroshi Tanaka, who had fought on Iwo and witnessed the battlefield firsthand, the psychological toll was profound. Reflecting on their failures, he stated that their inability to comprehend the Navajo language made them feel primitive and defeated even before the first shot was fired. It was as if their understanding of strategy, coordination, and enemy's intentions remained forever outside their grasp. The legacy of the Navajo Code Talkers extended beyond the conflicts of war. Their vital contributions remained classified for reasons related to national security, and their service was kept secret for many years afterward, particularly in the early days, a sacred tradition that once served as a ceremonial purification for warriors, symbolizing the cleansing of spiritual taint acquired through warfare. As Dan Urke explained, in the past, the Navajo language had been employed explicitly as a tool for warfare, used to encode messages that carried death and destruction. Recognizing the weight of their own language, the Navajo people saw an opportunity to reclaim its sacredness, transforming it from a weapon of war into a means of healing and protection. The ceremonies conducted by the Navajo served as a crucial reminder that their language was not merely a form of communication, but held a sacred spiritual significance that warranted reverence and respect. In the year of 1968, the United States government officially declassified the existence of the Code Talker program, which marked a turning point in recognizing their invaluable contribution. The following year, during a reunion of the 4th Marine Division, the first formal acknowledgement was made, highlighting the extraordinary role these native speakers played in the war effort. Later, on the 14th day of August in the year 1982, President Ronald Reagan designated that day as National Navajo Code Talkers Day to honor their service and sacrifice. The most profound recognition came on the 26th day of July in the year 2001, when President George W. Bush formally awarded the original 29 Code Talkers, only 5 of whom were alive to receive the honor, medals of great prestige, the Congressional Gold Medal. Standing in the national Capitol's rotunda, President Bush emphasized the uniqueness of their service, stating, "Today we honor 29 Native Americans who provided a service only they could deliver," acknowledging that their contribution was indeed singular and irreplaceable. Responding to this recognition, Chester, one of the Code Talkers, modestly stated, "We were ordinary men entrusted with an extraordinary task. We used our sacred language not only to communicate, but to help our nation secure victory in a time of chaos and danger." While the Navajo were the most recognized, they were not alone. The program included 14 other tribes that also contributed their languages to create a secure military cipher. The concept of using native languages as code was pioneered during World War I, with the Chiricahua Apache being among the first, laying the groundwork for future efforts in the Second World War. During the latter conflict, or specifically on D-Day, 17 Comanche Code Talkers played a vital role in Europe, their voices echoing across the battlefield, carrying messages that no enemy could decipher. The contributions of other tribes such as the Hopi, Cherokee, Lakota, and many more further expanded this unique communication network. Their efforts culminated in the passing of the Code Talkers Recognition Act of 2008, which officially acknowledged the participation of all tribes involved in this vital military operation. John Brown Jr., one of the Code Talkers, reflected on the perception of their language. "They told us that Navajo was no good, that it was an unwritable, primitive tongue. Then they needed it desperately to win the war," he said, highlighting how their native tongue proved to be a powerful and sophisticated tool. The Code Talkers not only developed a military cipher, but they innovated their language in real time, creating new grammatical structures and metaphors tailored for military communication. The agglutinative structure of Navajo, where complex ideas could be expressed with relative brevity, transformed lengthy English paragraphs into concise, meaningful phrases containing only a few words. Dr. William Morgan, a linguist and academic, observed that this success challenged preconceptions about indigenous languages, demonstrating that they are anything but primitive. The Navajo language, in particular, proved capable of conveying intricate concepts, from traditional ceremonies to the intricacies of warfare, through its grammatical richness. The use of Navajo for code created a form of cultural encryption, a linguistic barrier so sophisticated that no mathematics or conventional cryptography could easily break it. This pioneering form of security not only protected military secrets during the war, but also influenced post-war intelligence operations, foreshadowing the challenges posed by emerging quantum computing, which threatens our current mathematical encryption methods. Colonel David Hatch, a military historian, evaluated this achievement as unparalleled, stating that they accomplished something truly extraordinary, creating a cipher that was never broken nor compromised during the entire war. Their success demonstrated that human linguistic ability could surpass even the most advanced mechanical encryption methods, a testament to the power of native language and cultural knowledge in warfare. In the 1980s, Japanese scholars undertook detailed research to analyze their own defeats and failures to decode the Navajo Code. Professor Teo Yoshikawa revealed that 30 cryptography analysts exclusively studied the transmissions for 2 years, working across multiple affiliated universities to understand the nuances of Navajo encryption. Captain Minoru Yamada admitted that by late in 1943, Japanese intelligence authorities knew they were dealing with a Native American language, but remained unable to identify which one. Lieutenant Commander Shigeru Fukumoto, reflecting on their effort, admitted that they never. Throughout history, the pursuit of perfect encryption has often been considered the pinnacle of military innovation, an ideal where messages can be transmitted with absolute confidentiality, thwarting enemy interception and decoding efforts. Despite the advanced technological capabilities of some nations, this quest was famously exemplified during World War II by a group of Native American men whose native language provided an unbreakable code that confounded the most sophisticated enemy intelligence of the time. Before their passing, 3 decades ago, these extraordinary individuals, known as the Navajo Code Talkers, demonstrated the remarkable power of linguistic diversity as a strategic defense. In the 94 years prior to their deaths, culminating in the death of Chester Nez, the last surviving member of the original 29, over 400 Navajo Marines served confidentially, transmitting critical battlefield messages quickly and flawlessly. Among the latter-day heroes were Thomas H. Bay and Peter McDonald. While neither of them belonged to the original cadre, their contributions proved indispensable to maintaining the operational edge of the Navajo Code. Notably, Peter McDonald continued speaking about the legacy of the Code Talkers well into his 96th year, highlighting the enduring importance of their story. This chapter of history vividly underscored that the true strength of the United States has often stemmed from its profound diversity. The myriad languages and cultures that make up the American fabric, not just a matter of tradition, but a vital source of strategic advantage, were key to shaping the nation's resilience and adaptability. The Navajo language, once subjected to suppression and marginalization, has now gained formal recognition for its unique value in military strategy. Federal support and funding increasingly reference the Code Talker story, affirming the importance of preserving indigenous linguistic heritage. Moreover, a new generation of Native American youth is now proud to engage with their ancestral languages, transforming them from relics of the past into living, dynamic resources vital to our national security. Scholarship and observation from figures such as Dr. Jennifer Dennedale emphasize that the contributions of the Code Talkers profoundly altered both how Native Americans perceive themselves and how the broader American society views Native communities. Their actions dispelled harmful stereotypes, illustrating that Native languages, far from being ancient relics, are active, powerful tools of communication and innovation. The Navajo Code Talkers' unyielding communication during the war resulted in a military feat that remains unparalleled. They devised an unbreakable code that successfully resisted Japanese cryptanalytic efforts throughout the entirety of the conflict, all while operating under the most intense combat conditions. In numbers often cited as approximate, between 375 and 420 Navajo Marines served in this vital role. They transmitted tens of thousands of messages, each sounding intrinsically simple, yet representing an incredible complexity, without a single error or breach of security. These extraordinary men transformed the battlefield communications paradigm, providing a resilient shield against enemy deciphering that significantly impacted the outcome of key Pacific battles. Portraying this military victory solely as a tactical achievement would be an oversimplification. Deep down, the story symbolizes a broader truth about American identity, that the nation's core strength resides not merely in its industrial might or technological innovation, but in the rich tapestry of human cultures, languages, and perspectives which it encompasses. The Native American Code Talkers uniquely embodied this reality. Their native language, which the government had historically sought to eradicate through assimilation tactics such as forced schooling and cultural suppression, instead became a strategic asset that defended the nation, turning what was once an instrument of repression into a symbol of resilience and ingenuity. Their success also revealed that the enemies who underestimated the Americans' diversity, particularly Japan, whose wartime ideology espoused notions of racial and cultural superiority, faced fundamentally flawed assumptions. Japan's military planners focused heavily on breaking codes and exploiting technological vulnerabilities, but they proved blind to the invaluable resource that was human cultural diversity. They prepared for the expected, intercepting encoded messages, yet did not account for the resilience and secrecy embedded within the myriad languages from indigenous nations. Ultimately, Japan's inability to penetrate the Navajo Code symbolized their failure to comprehend the core strength of the American mosaic. The acknowledgement by Japanese officials, such as Lieutenant General Arasui, that Japan never managed to crack the Marine Code, despite their extensive efforts, speaks volumes. It underscores that the code's robustness was rooted in the voices, languages, and cultures of people for whom these communications were second nature, an untouchable aspect of human diversity that codes alone, no matter how complex, could not emulate. The Navajo Code Talkers personified a form of national strength rooted in cultural pluralism, an America that, in its best expression, is an alliance of diverse peoples united by a shared purpose. Their unbreakable code is emblematic, proof that cultural differences are not weaknesses to be overcome, but assets to be valued, safeguarded, and harnessed. As the last of these code talkers depart into history, their legacy remains vibrant, not only through memorials and recognition, but also in the continued teaching of native languages, which were once deliberately suppressed. The stories of the Code Talkers reveal a powerful truth that transcends language and time, messages sent in languages that foreign nations could never decode. Yet amidst these confidential communications, the most profound message they conveyed was that diversity itself embodies strength. The richness of different cultures provides resilience, and the unique knowledge inherent in indigenous traditions fuels modern innovation and progress. The young Navajo men, who wielded their sacred language both as a weapon in defense and as a tool for fostering peace, demonstrated unequivocally that America's most profound form of encryption is its diversity, a kind of unbreakable cipher that stems from the boundless well of human experience and collective wisdom. This uncrackable code remains intact because it is woven into the very fabric of our society, alive in every native child who speaks their ancestral language with pride, and in every acknowledgement that minority contributions serve to fortify our collective identity. It is a deepening understanding that embracing our differences results in strengths that serve to unite us rather than divide. The Code Talkers' legacy is a testament to the fact that our differences should be celebrated confidently, for they are the building blocks of resilience and innovation. Their story stands as eternal proof that the diverse voices, peoples, and languages of our nation, united in purpose yet rich in variety, collectively forge an unbreakable code, the very essence of freedom itself.